I did all alright. Had no need to fight tonight.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to the BRED to Build podcast, a project dedicated to sharing the stories of the people who build and those who help move construction forward. My name is Brett Goen. I'm the founder of Hammr and builders of Insta, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Piniella.
What is going on, guys? It's Matt Piniella, and welcome back to another episode of the BRED to Build podcast.
So today we got Ernie Villarino on the podcast, and we're going to be talking about union versus non-union and probably the most badass hammer that you will ever see. So we're going to take a jump into that. And big news, November 11th, if you're listening to it today, he's going to be dropping the Ernie brand hammer. So we're going to talk about that. Ernie, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the show, my man.
What's up, guys?
How you doing, brother?
We're doing good, real good. Thank you for having me.
We just had one of the longest intro conversations before we even started the podcast, but this guy's got some depth.
Good time.
This guy's got some depth to him. So Matt and I are really stoked to have you on here. Super pumped to get to know your story and everything that you got going on. So tell us a little bit about your story. You're the very first union carpenter that we got on the show. I'm really just curious, man. Like tell us your story. Where did all this start from? Let's take it back.
Let's see. Okay, so I used to be a pro rollerblader and had sponsors, got paid all through high school. And then I stopped doing that, and I was living at home. And my old man was he was GC, general contractor, and real old school. He was like, well, fuck, you don't get to live in my house for free. You're going to go to work. I was like, what's that? What do you mean? What's that? He's like, I got something for you, right? So he had me tear off a roof, and then I was pretty good at it. And then so he had me shingle it, and I think I was like 16 or 17, right about that age. And then so I started working for my dad full time, and then I got this thing that was really cool. It was called money, you know what I mean? And I started making a lot of money. And it was like, well, you know what? I can do this. I didn't think about school or anything like that. And then and I asked him about college and this and that. He's like, trust me. He's like, you're going to make a lot more money here. He's like, but it's up to you. If you want to go to school, go to school. He's like, but I'm not going to pay for it, right? Real just like, so anyway, then I found this other thing. After I got that money, I started getting girlfriends, and then it was all over, right? So I guess I was stuck. And so, you know, you're working like a man and you're partying like a man. And so then I started working for my own man. So by the time I was 19, I could build a house from the ground up, start to finish. Yeah, you know, foundation. First, he had me dig them by hand too, and pick and shovel, and then, you know, footings, foundation, set the forms, frame, cut the roof. I got to learn how to cut a roof, like actually cut the roof, not trusses, and that was pretty cool. And then after that, it was like, all right, cool. Now you got a crew of two. So I was young. I was 19. I had a crew of two and drove the work truck, and we'd go do remodels, and then I'd run them. And after that, I got to a point where it was he didn't pay me that much. I mean, it was a father-son thing, and yeah, you know, he was making $750,000 a year back then.
There we go.
In business, you know, between 6 guys, I was pretty good back then. And so I said, what do I do now? And he's like, wow, there's nothing really else I can teach you. You know how to build. He's like, either you do your own thing or why don't you go join the union? So then I called a friend of mine. He was working union, and he got me on. Yeah, I said, hey, man, if you get me on, I need a job. And he's like, I thought you worked for your dad. I said, I was, but it's kind of time to move on. And he wasn't paying me that much. But anyway, long story short, so I joined the union, and been in the union ever since. And then I got my license. And then I was a GC for a while, for almost 4 years. And then the market crashed. And then I got lucky. I got a job. And then I stayed busy, and I've been doing it ever since.
So you're back with union full time right now?
Yeah, I've been with the union for probably like 7 years, 8 years straight.
Oh, wow.
Which union are you with?
Local 619 out of San Diego.
With Manny, right?
Yeah, Manny's with us.
Shout out to Manny.
Yeah, Manny's cool dude.
He's gonna be listening to this. You better be listening to this, Manny.
Right on, right on.
All right.
Yeah, man, he's a cool guy, man. He does some good work.
You guys are freaking rad. I give you props for what you do because there's no way in hell I could do it.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you could.
Ernie, like I was telling you before we were jumping on the podcast. I mean, like even me growing up doing residential stuff with my dad and everything, like seeing what you guys build. I don't know if it like opened my eyes, but when I lived in San Diego, seeing some of the bridges down there, there's just like very fascinating projects. And then actually seeing you guys build that. I mean, the perspective around it is, I think a lot of people just in society see these bridges built and they never really think of like how they're built, how they're like the people that take and like how much effort it takes to actually build these things. And so when I see you guys, it's just like so badass to me that like people like you build these massive structures and then hundreds, if not millions of people drive these on a day-to-day basis. And it is, I don't know, the perspective and just what you guys do is just like, to me, out of the world. And that's just not like flattery. It's just, I think it's just perspective that you bring to an entire industry. Like these guys build some insane stuff.
I agree with that.
I say people like us, people like you, Matt. I mean, it takes a lot of different people to make it happen. It's not just the Hammr swingers. There's the logistics involved, the project, the real estate. I mean, you can see how it's a real ecosystem of what works to make it happen.
Oh, it takes everybody.
Yeah. Like on a smaller project, like what I used to do, it was like I'd go get my material, I'd bring my material, I'd load my material. Now in our projects, it's a full-on logistics just to get it right. And then we have to schedule mud. So that's why it's so important. You're ordering 600 yards. That just doesn't come out of the local. I mean, you got to have that stuff ready so they can have enough concrete just to make that pour.
Yeah, that's planned ahead.
Yeah, that's why we work late in concrete so much. This is the schedule. We got to chase the schedule, and this is what it is. Like it's not like, hey, we might be able to have it done by this date. That's why some guys don't like high rise, because high rises, as soon as you start, you're under the gun. As soon as you're finished, guess what? You're back under the gun. We got another thing to do. And some guys like a slower paced thing. Like
concrete doesn't wait for you.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But before we hop into the next topic, I want to talk to you about that because you mentioned material. How has this been with COVID? Have you guys noticed a shortage? Because even here with small residential, it's been hell for us. We haven't noticed a shortage, but where it ships out of is farther and it's more expensive. Like a 2x4 used to be 50 cents a lineal. Right now it's 75 cents. So, just for anybody, an 8-footer, how much is an 8-footer now? Let's say a 10-footer is $7.50, right? That's a lot of money for one 2x4. Hell yeah, it is. You got to use that thing wisely.
Yeah, you better, by the time you're done cutting, you better have a pile this big, and that's all I want to see.
No, that's how it is with small residential here too. The last house we did, we were way over budget regarding material, and it wasn't even that big of a place, but it definitely hit everybody a little bit different.
Well, think about it. That's a quarter. Oh no, that's a quarter more, right?
Yeah, that's
like your whole cost.
Our biggest price jump we noticed was with OSB. I watched the stock market quite a bit, and Norborg stocks was like a gold mine come March. It went down to, I think it was somewhere around $10 to $12 a share. And then right about now we're hitting $35, $36. So had someone wanted to jump in a little bit lower earlier in the year, they could be making some.
That's almost 100% on their money, huh?
Right now it'd be about 3 times. You'd make damn good money. It's insane.
I'm telling you, we're in the wrong business.
Yes, we are. We should be on Wall Street.
We should be. Who would have thought these hat-wearing hooligans don't know their shit?
Oh, that's gold. I want to jump into a topic that's pretty controversial, and it's the difference between you and I.
Okay.
That's union versus non-union. More or less what I'd like to talk about. I'm going to kind of step back here for a sec because my big push is with the youth. And to be honest with you, if I had to tell a kid right now which path they should go on, whether it would be finding a small residential company that's non-union or finding a union company they could work for, I would push them your direction all day long. And I actually worked with a kid down in
SoCal area. And at 19 years old, he's making 30 something bucks an hour. He's driving a nice new truck and he's killing it in the union. And to be honest with you, that wouldn't happen in residential. So, yeah, basically just see what you think about that, union versus non-union. Could you explain how they land a job, the whole process?
Well, let's see. First, we'll say pro-union. I'm pro-union.
For sure.
Being the fact that no man is not equal, right? Like, and I mean that with the greatest respect. No, I did this one post where it was no race, no color, earn a brand, right? So that goes across the board. If this guy's worth this much, he should be paid that much, right? Meaning union sets the standard. I know a lot of guys that work non-union that, hey, more power to them. That's their choice. It's a freedom of choice. But if you're going to work for, let's keep the numbers easy, right? Let's say you're working for $10 an hour. You're topped out at $10, right? And you're doing the same work, but this guy down the street is paying you $7 an hour. And he has the right to tell you, well, you're not worth that $10 an hour, because that's what you choose to believe, right? So you stay there, you work there 10 years. Guess what? You still got that $7 an hour, but this guy over here, you got this union that's fighting for you, pushing for you, right? Because you're only the voice of one, and he's by himself. He's just the voice of one. And he might have 4 guys that want more money, but hey, there's really no power there. But you have this long line of history where people fought for equal rights, workers' rights. I'm pro-union because of that fact of like, hey, I get my break. Well, guess what? You need to work through your break, but you didn't get paid for it. Now you work through your lunch, you didn't get paid for it. Wait a minute, I work through my lunch. I get time and a half on that lunch, right? So most employers don't want to work a crew because seconds equal minutes, minutes equal hours, hours create days, and so on and so forth. And in the end, it's all money. But to say union, I'm pro-union because I get my benefits, I get a vacation check, I get all these things that the union has fought for you. And the guy across the street, he might be a badass carpenter, but he doesn't know what he's getting. But so he's happy and he doesn't want to create no waves. And the exploitation of the worker, it's not cool, man. It's not cool because these guys are getting more than you that are doing the same amount of work. So go pro-union. Now, if you're a business owner, I wouldn't say go union because you got to pay all this shit, all this people that don't really fucking get what they want. You know what I mean?
You're in a different ball game after that.
Yeah, because that's the difference between being an owner and being a worker. You know what I mean? When you're an owner, you're about the business and the dollars and cents of it all. You're pushing, like, you know what I mean? Like I said, those seconds or hours and minutes and so on and so forth. That's the difference between 100,000 and 300,000, right? Depending on what you make. I mean, you guys are in business for yourself, right?
Yeah.
So you know what it costs, and nobody realizes how much comes out of your pocket.
Not at all.
You know what I mean? Like they're just, oh, well, look, you might have a nice truck and you might be doing this and you might be on the internet. Hey, you don't know what the you got going on, right? It costs a lot of money to run a business, just like we were talking about that material. Hey, guess what? The cost went up, but you still got to come in on that bid. That's neither here nor there for your business cost, right? Doesn't matter what the world does. Hey, this is my contract bid and this is what happens. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in what side of the fence you want to be on.
Yeah. How can a youngster find a spot in the union?
You got to learn that no doesn't mean no. You go hit a job and you want a job, and you tell them, I want to work for you. And well, I'm not hiring right now. And you come back the next day. I'm not hiring, kid. I'm going to come back every day till you give me a job where somebody doesn't show up. One day you're going to give me a job. I'm going to work hard for you. You're going to realize how much of an asset I am. That's the mentality they got to have. And if the guy pulls him on, then he gets sponsored in. Hey, he has a job.
So what does an apprenticeship program look like for, say, someone that's 18, 19 years old? How long is it, and what's that process like?
It's anywhere from 4 to 3 years, depending on how many hours you work in a day. I mean, you get on high rise, you can be in and out in 3 years. You could go from roughly $18 an hour to $40 an hour, just like that in 3 years.
22 years old making 40. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a journeyman since I was 23 years old. Back then, it was like I think it was like 20 bucks, right? That wasn't that much, but in that 10 years, it's went up 10 bucks. You know what I mean?
And then as far as job security goes, once you're in with the union, how is it as far as like keeping employees? Do you have a high turnover? Or?
Well, okay. Just because you're a journeyman doesn't mean you're a journeyman, right? I mean,
Ernie, I love your wisdom, man. I love
right?
it,
I
dude.
mean, like,
You have these punchlines. You have these punchlines. I love it.
How about this one? You ever had to make chicken soup out of chicken shit? There you go. You know what I mean? Like, so just because you're a journeyman doesn't mean you're a journeyman, right? So, like, you'll have a journeyman that's bad. I mean, he's a badass guy. I mean, he knows how to do walls, decks, fucking flyers, columns, all the shit that it entails, right? And then you got a guy that might have been on a bridge his whole career, and then he comes in and he's not well-rounded, right? But he knows how to build the shit out of a bridge, or he knows the shit out of flat work or curb and gutter, because that's what he's done. So as far as your turnaround, you get what you put in, and that's the bottom line. If we got a big project, hey, we need bodies. Guess what? You made the cut. And as you start going higher and higher and higher, and you start needing less people, well, guess what? You didn't make the cut. You know what I mean?
So the good ones stick around.
That's like with anything, you know, you don't,
For sure.
You don't want guys that are just there for a check and don't want to hustle, don't have no enthusiasm to do the work. They're just there. Nobody wants, that's bad for morale. You know what I mean?
We've talked about this before, because I brought up the 2008 recession, and one of the biggest things that kept people afloat was being versatile, being able to do more than one thing. I know a lot of people that were framing specialists. They had a specialty license to frame only, and they were dead in the water. But the people that knew how to do more, they were out doing remodels. They were doing kitchen and bath remodels. They were staying busy. But I like that. I'm kind of glad to hear that. So the more versatile you could be, chances are you're going to keep your job.
Well, yeah, because look, check it out. I know there's a lot of people that say, hey, this and this and that, right? But the carpenters dictate everything. The carpenters build the decks. The ironworkers put the rebar on the decks, and then the walls come in, and then the ironworkers put everything. I'll tell you what, ain't nobody ever told me where the fuck to put the rebar. I tell you where to put the rebar. I tell you where to put the columns. I put the bolts in so you can set. You know what I mean? Like, the carpenters dictate everything. I give you the lines of north and east and west, and we lay out of that. You come ask the carpenter, hey, well, how far is this off over here? Well, what do I do? Like I said, you don't tell me shit. I tell you what, right? Right? I mean, it's the truth, right? The plumber comes and says, hey, what's going on over here? Are you asking me for my opinion, or am I telling you where it goes, right? AKA, I tell you what, right? So there's this big debate about carpenters and fucking, you know, iron workers and plumbers and electricians and shit like that. But at the end of the day, we're all blue and we work for a living. So you know what? I respect them.
Yes,
but,
sir.
You know what I mean? Like you've got to, but there's always that little, you know, that job site.
There's going to be battles between the trades for as long as we're alive.
Forever. And, you know, and it's all in good fun, and it makes the job go. And, yeah.
It's the camaraderie, man. It's the camaraderie.
Totally, right?
The thing is even like at a super young age, it was like, if the guys give you shit, it means they like you. Like if you're not getting shit, like there's something wrong. You got to like search for it, make sure someone's dogging on you a little bit.
Which is true. I mean, it's a lifestyle. I mean, it's definitely a lifestyle.
I want to bring up some of the youth in the industry. You and I have talked a little bit about this, but you're pretty passionate around this aspect as well. But you know, the youth in the industry, the union is always bringing in new faces. How are the young guns you've worked with? Are they pulling their weight? And what's something that you think the youth could do prior to working a spot like you're at to kind of better their chance at keeping their job?
First and foremost, they have to want it. If you're just doing a summer job, it's not for you. You're just wasting time, right? But if you come in and you're hungry for it and you show enthusiasm for the work and, hey, I want to be good, one thing is, show me your friends and I'll show you who you are, right? If you hang out with carpenters and you learn the carpenters and you learn the ways, you understand they go to bed early and wake up early. I mean, yeah, I said that right.
No.
Anyway, right? Go to bed early and wake up early. Or they go to bed real late and wake up early. That's a whole different story and a whole different channel. But anyway, but to be for real, swing a hammer. Like if you really want to be a carpenter, pick up a hammer, go buy a hammer, buy a box of nails and a piece of wood and see if you can do it. I mean, I had this one kid, God bless his soul. I got a lot of jokes. So he's going like this, right? And he's nailing 8s, right? Cleats, right? For a 6-inch curve. I'm like, all right, put these on, put them every 3 feet. And it was long, right? Long, right? And so anyway, so I tell him, all right, nail these 8s in, right? And he's got his bags loaded up. And so he's going like this, right? He hits the nail, bam, right? And he's going like this, right? And I'm like, dude, I didn't know you were in a band. He said, what do you mean? I said, you're a hell of a drummer, homeboy. Swing that mother. He was going like this.
Oh, that's cute.
Oh, you keep rhythm, okay? But anyway, he got it, and he learned. But muscles that he hadn't used before, train, get strong. Like first thing you're gonna do as a first period, hey, guess what? All that material needs to come over here. Pick that up. Learn how to touch your toes. If a guy can't bend over, you know what I mean? Like you can't touch your toes standing straight up. We're gonna have problems, and you're gonna have problems because this work is that.
Ernie, I want to talk about Matt. Hold on,
before you're killing me, man. You're taking me
the next one.
Whatever you guys want.
So we're talking about the youth in the industry, and Matt and I were doing a panel a couple weeks ago, and one thing that was brought up, and we were talking about this before we started recording the podcast, but the Y generation, the next generation, the millennials, the Generation Z, whatever you want to call them, the up and coming guys. A lot of people categorize them as the Y generation, always needing a reason why they're doing something, so much explanation. And I think that frustrates some of the older guys in the industry. Like, why does this next generation need so many reasons to do something? We were talking about the Y generation, but I'm kind of curious. You had a really good perspective before we jumped in and started recording, but tell us a little bit and share some of your wisdom around the whole Y generation.
The Y generation is some of the smartest kids that have ever came out, right? Because they know how to balance a checkbook. They might not have no money, but they know how. They have the tools, right? And so when they ask a question, it's not based upon why. Why do I got to do that? Or why do I get that? It's based upon their phone being in their hand. How do you spell this? How do I do that? Or how do I download this app? It's just a question, and it's ingrained in them to ask a question. So I think the Y generation can teach the old generation just as much as we can teach them, because we're constantly learning off of each other, right? They might not be as rough and tumble and, gritty like the older generation, because they weren't raised like that. They didn't get to go out and throw rocks at each other. You know what I mean? The only thing they did was throw tweets and texts at each other. Hey, I'm going to kick your ass. And
for sure.
Tweet goes back and forth. You know what I mean? When you're with your friends in our generation, we throw a rock and the rock hits him in the side of the head. And then he said, I'm going to kick your ass. Right? So like, it's different. They were raised different, but they're not bad. We, as the older generation, have to learn how to herd them and show them, hey, look, this is why. And 9 times out of 10, you give them that extra 5 minutes, it goes a long way, because they can come back to you and they're not afraid to say, how come I'm doing this? Wouldn't it be easier if I did this? And sometimes they give you a little bit of perspective because you've been trained by the old ways, and you got to learn that, hey, you know what? Goddamn, you're pretty smart, kid. You don't tell them that, but
you don't give them that much.
Yeah, you don't give them that much, but you understand that they're smart, and then you give them a little bit more. And the more they ask, they're really good at, like, okay, give me fucking 25 embeds right here, and then down this line, put them every 3 feet. They might pull their tape out every 3 feet, but they're learning the process of it all. That's just my personal opinion on the Y generation. But they're not all good. I don't know why.
You bring up a good point, though. It's the information generation. I mean,
Yes.
the immediate thought that jumped in my head when you were talking about the Y generation is kind of like the Google search generation, where any
You're
type
exactly right.
any type of information that you need, you just Google it. I mean, like just saying it is so fluid off the tongue. Just Google it. Just Google it. Just Google it. I'm sure you were doing a lot of that too when you were first starting your business with the Hammr and everything. But
Yeah,
it's
totally.
it's more of the Y generation is not that they need an explanation of why they're doing it. It's more of like the education thing. They're not trying to challenge the older generation. It's putting the puzzle pieces together. Again, to your point, to learn about the process, to understand where the puzzle pieces go, versus just being told what to do to be another cog in the machine.
I
Yeah, I
agree
think.
with that.
Go ahead.
It's more or less knowing what in the hell you're doing. As somebody who's just gotten to the industry in the last 10 years, I wanted to know what I was doing and why I was doing it. And I can agree with what both of you guys have said. When I'm putting on A35s when I was 16 years old, I didn't want to know, okay, freaking nails go on the bottom, nails go on the top, it's done. I wanted to know what the purpose of that freaking piece of hardware was in that specific location. So as I got older, like I still have a strong tie of Simpson handbook with me, and I flip through periodically to look through different hardware just to where I can understand each and everything, to where I know when and where to apply it. Not just, okay, the plans tell me it goes here. I don't know why it goes there, but it goes there. I want to know the purpose of it, what it's doing and why it's there. And I think I've seen that a lot with the younger generation too, is you can tell them how to do something and they'll do it. But when you teach them that A, B, or C is there for uplift and this is what it's preventing or this is what it's helping with, it seems to click a little bit better and they progress quicker.
I think so. I second that. I just really feel they don't want to be stupid. They don't
No,
want to feel
I
like
don't
the
think anybody
dumbass.
does.
Yeah, exactly. So take the time and give them the respect that they deserve. I mean,
We live
but
in a world. Yeah, go for it, Ernie.
but then you gotta read through the bullshit too. Well, why am I doing this? Motherfucker already told you why you were doing that.
Yeah.
Don't ask me twice. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, we live in a world with information overload, so much information. And I think, like, especially now, there's so much noise in whatever industry it is. You're kind of like what you were saying. You kind of have to sift through the BS all the time,
Yeah.
like, and the why and everything like that. So I think it's good. It's important too, because I mean, even when you look at the current state of construction right now, we got like 40% of our industry retiring over the next 10 years. There's going to be a massive generational workforce shift. And I think it's not even, I think it has to happen. But the older, the veterans need to train and just show the purpose in everything that this next generation does. So there's a knowledge transfer. If there's not a knowledge transfer in the industry, you're going to have a massive gap in a workforce that understands and knows what the hell they're doing.
Yeah. And then the only person that's going to suffer is the contractor.
Exactly.
That you won't make deadlines, and you won't perform. So I went to Vegas for a journeyman leadership training program, and they talked a lot about that, about how we have to bridge that gap because the population is growing.
Mm-hmm.
Construction, there's always construction.
Yes,
And people are always going to move out, and people are always going to need shelter. People are always going to need, food.
This industry does not die.
So what does it do, right? It's growth, it's expansion. You know what I mean? So we have to build. We have to, and we're going to have to find new ways. Like wood is not as renewable as it used to be. We're going to have to find different sources.
I think we're heading towards that quite a bit with, like, we've talked about this before. There's a lot of new products that are coming out. There's a lot of changes being made. We can only grow so much and it only comes out so quick. I agree with you completely.
What do you think about manufactured homes? Since we're on the building process of it.
We've talked about this prior to. I like the idea of it. I like how quick it can go up. The one thing I don't like is taking the craft out of what we're doing. I personally enjoy being able to put something together that looks freaking phenomenal and say, I built that. But when you think about, like, I'm all for prefabbed panels and stuff, but the more we get towards that, I feel like they're more or less just trying to drop the prices of labor and increase the amount of homes they're putting out. So I don't know. As somebody that's big into the custom home industry, I don't exactly like it, but For big multifamily and stuff, I'm all for it.
I think it makes a lot of
That's
sense
a
with
fair
that.
answer. Fair
I think it
answer.
makes a lot of sense for the multifamily and everything. Matt and I were talking with some big suppliers a couple of weeks ago. I think there's this notion that a lot of people believe that just the manufacturing industry is just going to completely replace construction. I think that's entirely false.
I agree.
I think there's so many different moving components that are really going to help, whatever you want to call it, the housing shortage, the labor shortage, everything that's going on in the construction industry. I think there's so many components that need to work together to build a better industry. But, even talking on the manufactured homes and everything, we were talking to the suppliers a couple of weeks ago, and there's this big push on affordability. And if you look at other countries, I think they were talking about Japan, right, man? Where they were
Yes,
where they were talking about how the average cost of a home is about 7 times the income in Japan, and primarily all of their methods are manufacturing methods.
Mhm.
And so we have to take in consideration too, in America, even if we're dealing with people that like customization, uniqueness to how they build and design changes and all these things. So again, that's kind of just my perspective on it, but I don't think it's completely going to change the industry or replace it. Plus,
I think it can definitely make a movement with multifamily and stuff that's
I agree.
competitive, such as track homes where you've got the same layout flipped 3 different times. That's perfectly fine. But when you get onto these bigger customs and you have 6 different wall heights and 3 different roof pitches and nothing is normal, that's where the brains come into it, and you actually have to think through everything and make sure that it all pans out. I'm sure it could be done in panelized walls and stuff like that, but to be honest with you, I feel like that stuff should definitely stay on site.
Yeah, I agree. You don't want custom homes that came out of a box. You want everything built, right?
Exactly.
You want craftsmen on it.
You don't build a damn gingerbread house out of a kit and come up with some mansion. You end up with the same damn little box and it looks the same as the package. If you're wanting
You're right.
something bigger, you better buy 3 of them.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Ernie, is there any products that you're seeing like panels or even like cross laminated timber? We've talked about that on the podcast. If you're familiar with it, is there anything that you're pretty stoked on right now? New products or materials?
I like those I-beams. You know what I mean? The wood I-beams. They come out. They're plywood in the middle, and then they got a 2.5 inch. Those are cool. We use those on deck systems and stuff like that. Those are pretty impressive.
We're slowly working towards more engineer, especially out here in California. So I know you see this quite a bit. We're working towards pretty much everything being engineered. I haven't built a floor system in ages that's been a traditional 2x10 or 2x12. Everything's manufactured at this point. So I think that's definitely the future.
Well, you have a span. Like, I mean, they have these commercial joists that'll span 40 feet.
Oh, you couldn't get that with traditional lumber.
No, you got 18 inches tall. They're commercial glue lam joists and
40 feet.
40 feet. That's big, dude.
That's massive.
That's big. That's a long distance with no interior supports. You can't get that with regular wood, but
no, not at all.
Never.
So
those are pretty exciting.
I'm going to jog us back a little bit and talk more about the work side of things. Kind of a touchy subject as well. I looked up the statistics on this because rod busters are known for having a fairly dangerous job. And there's actually 68 deaths per 100,000 employees compared to 5 deaths or 7 deaths, depending on what you look at, for drywallers or carpenters. So you have a 10 times higher chance of dying than I do. Not that that's a bad thing, but has safety progressed over time since you've been in the industry? Because I know you've been in it for a minute now. As far as my side of things, residential framing, we've made a huge leap compared to what we were doing before I was even born. Have you noticed a big safety increase as well, especially with union?
Well, so union's always been real safe.
Yeah.
And I know the guys that work non-union that come over and make the jump. They're like, we never had to do this. I'm like, well, this is what we got to do here. This is how we get it done. And safety's a big thing because, I run work. So I take it as a personal responsibility that every man that works with me or next to me, he's going to go home. You know what I mean? I don't want the weight of his soul
on my shoulders, because I've never had anybody die under me, and I don't ever want that feeling. And I don't ever want to have to call one of my friends, old ladies, or boyfriends, whatever, and say, hey, you're not coming home, or she's not coming home. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want that. So safety is always first. And we tie off at 6 feet. And I don't like to see the apprentices, hey, dude, look, 6 feet is 6 feet, man. Nothing's important enough to risk your life for. Like, it's just not. And that whole gun-ho attitude, like, I got it, don't worry about it. Look, that's only in the movies, motherfucker. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, the hero, you know, he may fall in the car and, you know, come out and stands up. Trust me, you're not going to do it. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, it's just, safety is a big deal on our job. You know, handrail, toe boards, and just to think, like, I was working on a project and I was on some scaffold, and somebody dropped a wrench and it hit me in the arm, right? And it hurt. Like, I mean, it hurt. And it was only 3 floors, you know, 9-inch wrench. And I don't know if it hit right, but it was like, think about if that would have hit me in the head, or just, and it was an accident. Yeah, I mean, or right in the neck with a spud, like, it's over. You know what I mean? So to answer your question on the statistics, yeah, it's dangerous out there. It's real dangerous. And the companies I work for, they don't play. Like, we got a full-time safety guy, and we are all on each other's ass about safety.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, we don't mess around. I mean, because it only takes one mishap or 1 second or one wrong cut, and it's over. You know what I mean? And there's been a lot of people that died out here, so.
Yeah, I feel like the residential subject, you know? The residential side of things, especially with non-union, we're still seeing, depending on where you go, there's still quite a few people that are running and gunning with probably the most dangerous setups you can have. They're not tied off on 20, 30 feet up, third story. And in my opinion, as I got a little bit older, because that's how it was when I came into it as well, I don't want to die. I don't care what we're building. I don't care who we're building it for. There is nothing worth me not coming home to my wife and kids at the end of the day. And I know, like, I haven't always been the safest over time, but I don't care to die for any project that we're doing. And that's kind of how we've pushed all of our guys, as well as we've kind of progressed into a more safer work day, is that nothing is worth getting hurt over.
Nothing.
So if it costs us $1,000 to rent a scissor lift for a while, freaking do it. If that means somebody's not riding the ridge the whole entire time and risking their life, we're all for it. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are like that, especially with the youth, because I feel like some of these kids get into it and they don't want to disappoint. I've seen it firsthand. So they'll do anything possible, and they might not know what they're doing, but that's when the accident will happen. They just simply weren't educated.
Yeah, and they got to realize that it ain't a joke. You know what I mean? Like you had mentioned, you know, prepping up the saw guard, and
yep.
You know, I had a friend, he cut his leg open, and it was an accident. It wasn't even prepped up. It just, the guard kept sticking, and instead of getting a new saw, it wound up, binded, went up his leg, and he got lucky. It was only like yay big, but, you know, maybe an inch in, but dark guy turned real light real quick. He was, but anyway, yeah, but he was okay. But it's just that split second. And I was talking to him, and I was like, what happened? He's like, just bam, like that. Like, you know what I mean? And this is a seasoned, hands down, badass carpenter. I mean, fast, good, efficient, dots his I's and crosses his T's, and is good at his trade. And just that day, it bound up, and the saw studied up, and right up his leg. And
it'll happen to anyone. I feel like
you're right.
A good friend of mine, great carpenter as well, his big thing was never frame angry, and that sticks with me to this day. And shit wasn't exactly going right on a project we were doing. We were building it for a buddy of ours, and there was 12 or 14 of us on this project, 3-story. Bottom was commercial, up top was residential. He went to go cut a line brace, and guard was pinned. We were freaking running and gunning, and sure enough, he went to go cut this line brace. It wasn't nailed up at the top of the wall. He started his cut. The line brace fell off the wall, shot his saw up, and then straight through his wrist. He cut both the bones, and his arm was left dangling. But his big thing was never frame angry, and that day everyone was pissed. And sure enough, it was the one day that he was mad. He wasn't on his A game, and it caught up to him.
Whatever happened to him? Is he okay? Is he?
He got his arm back. We were, that's a great way to start it out. So the dude kept his wrist. We were working downtown. Hospital was close by. That project, everyone was pretty on it. We had a full-on map drawn out of where the hell to go for the hospital. They got him there in less than 5 minutes, and he was bleeding bad. They managed to sew everything back up. They flew him out, and he got surgery and stuff, but he kept his arm. He doesn't have a whole lot of function. It still works, but I didn't think they were going to keep the damn thing at all. But he still has a freaking arm, so it's impressive.
Does his fingers work at all?
Yeah, his finger, I don't think he has feelings in a couple of them, but for the most part, his hand works. I told him, you
Awesome.
know the cut lines on the boxes, on the Simpson boxes where it says cut here?
Uh-huh.
I always told him he should get one of those tattooed across it, but he hasn't gotten there yet. Soon, though.
He's going to tell you, this finger still works.
No, I love that takeaway though, Matt. Never frame angry, just with anything.
You can't do anything angry. If you do shit angry, you end up screwing it up.
Yeah.
I can vouch for that one.
All right, Ernie.
Not a good game.
I want to definitely talk about this beast of a creation that you've been building.
The
over
Hammr?
Oh yeah, that guy, the Hammr,
Hammr.
man. Yeah, this thing you brought to life, the Hammr that probably looks like no other Hammr that I've seen. I've been following and engaging, and we've been chatting, and it looks gnarly. But I'm really just curious to jump in before we talk about the how, and then you're launching the Hammr and everything. Let's talk about like why you did it in the first place.
I did it to, like, there's a lot of naysayers, right? Like, you talk about, hey, I got this going on, I got that going on. And if you want to see people on Mars, you tell me I can't get them there, okay? You know what I mean? Like, that's just who I am, always has been. You're not going to make this date. You're not going to, oh, fuck you, I'll make it. Why?
I beg to differ. I love that.
You know what I mean? Like, I fucking dare you. You know what I mean? Like, I always just put this post in Earner Brand worldwide. Want to bet? You know what I mean? So, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure thing. You know what I mean? The Seabiscuit right here. But, no, like, I wanted to start Earner Brand, right? And anybody can, and I'm not saying any kind of disrespect to anybody, right? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is anybody can start with hats and T-shirts and hoodies. That's like the tree, right? The trifecta, right? And so when I was going to come out with Earner Brand, I had to think about something like what is a product? Like a product that sells itself, like a product that puts your name on the map. And so I told everybody, like, I'm gonna make a hammer, right? And they're like, okay, what the is this guy talking about? Make a hammer? You know what I mean? Like, you just go make a hammer, like
There's already 30 of them out there. What are you doing?
Well, yeah, totally, yeah. Like, and that was like one of the big factors. Like, everybody's like, oh yeah, well, what is it going to look like? I said, well, it's going to probably be like this and like that. And then, so, you start telling your buddies about it, and you start to realize who are your friends and who are just guys you work with, right? And so it became more of a, yeah, watch this. I'll build a hammer, and I'm not going to build a hammer. I'm going to build the hammer, right? And so I knew that it had to be good. And I'm not saying good, but great, because I would be judged on it. You know what I mean? With anything that comes out, people judge you and this and that, right? So I started working on it, which was like, there's the first model. I don't know if you're left to right or right or left, but I'm going to point to this one like a weatherman. Right around here, we're going to have a storm, right? So right here, this was the first one, right? And it was the first thing that I was working on. Okay, with 3D printing, it didn't cost that much to make prototypes, right? Or models, so to speak. And so I started with that one. And there was a lot of things that I didn't like about it. So then I started with this one because I wanted a wrench for the she-bolt. Because, in bridge work and high-rise, we use tons of she-bolts, or any kind of John wall. They're like the golden savior, right? Put them on your bulkheads, put them at the bottom of your walls, and
you can go full liquid head. And depending on how many you put in, but anyway. So then I went to the third one. I don't know if you can see it right there, but this one was the third one. That one was sexy, real sexy. Everything about it was sexy, strength-wise, but nobody wanted to make it, right? Because it took too much to make, right? So then I leaned it down. And we got to remember, sometimes things don't happen to you, they happen for you. By leaning it down, it opened up so many different tools that I could use based upon building it, right? So then that's how we came up with this one right here, right?
That thing is beautiful.
It's sexy, but this right here, this is for she-bolts, right? So it had to be different when I built it, and it had to have multi-use functions, because most hammers are, what are they now? They're a side puller, like, and everybody has them now because the patent wore out on them, right? Yeah. So you got a side puller, claws, and some kind of cool handle, and just a striking face with a nail set, right? And that's it. That's the basis of a hammer. And you can go anywhere from 120 to $50 for a good hammer, in that range with that. Now, a wood hammer, a little less expensive, but there's so many things involved, and you have all these people saying, hey, well, shock this and shock that. Shock the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like that, if you don't know how to use your hammer, look, you're going to blow out your elbow anyway, right?
Yeah.
I've been doing this 20 some odd years now, and never had any issues with my hammer. I used metal hammers, wood hammers. It's really the way you swing and how much energy you let transfer back into your elbow, right? And that's a given thing. Pitcher's elbow, pitcher's shoulder, and tennis elbow. That's real. That's a real thing. But the way they swing, it's the way they transfer the force, and then they hold on to it so tight that there's nowhere for it to go. So it transfers into the elbow or into the shoulder, in the rotator cuff. You know what I mean? But if you swing a hammer, you let the energy release in the hammer, and you just let it hold in your hand, and you don't squeeze it tight. That thing vibrates, but it just vibrates in your hand. Everybody knows that, right? But anyway, I'm not here to teach people how to swing hammers. We're talking about my hammer that I built. But
before we go any further, if you guys, for anyone listening that wants to check this thing out and see just what kind of creation he's put together, the website's earnerbrand.com, ERNERBRAND.com. Go on there and check it out. That way, when you're listening, you guys can follow along and understand exactly what we're looking at.
Ernie, I think the thing that's fascinating about this hammer is it's the functionality. Like, you've built it for real job site use. I mean, I've watched you work with it, some of the videos that you have and everything. It's real world use. And just talk to us about some of the functionality, like how you use it, because it's not like what you said, the traditional hammer. You use it in so many different areas, and that's why you made it.
I've watched you pull a stake out of the ground with the handle of the damn thing.
Oh, yeah. I totally forgot about that one. It does so much. But, I'm kidding. No, yeah.
What does it not do?
It hasn't made me a sandwich yet. But no, see, like, if you guys want to go through the features, we'll go through it real Q&A real quick. Like, okay, so this, like I was talking about on the first one, it didn't have this. And I wanted this because how many times do you actually use a she-bolt? Use it a lot, right? And then if you're doing Dewey Dad rods, they come with an 1 1/4 bolt. So that's an 1 1/4. But then you can always, like, if you're working on something smaller, you can put a bolt in here, right?
Right there in the top of the thing.
Yeah. Let me feed that one through.
And that'll shrink it down to anything you got going.
This is a brand new hammer, so it's still tight, right? But usually you do it by hand. And it'll shrink it down all the way to a 1/2 inch, depending on what size bolts you have. But see how it goes in there?
That is badass.
So
how long has this thing been in the works?
Well,
from original design, like concept idea for you, to the one that's sitting in your hand right now?
It took about a year, in all truth, like from design concept in my head to set my paperwork for my patent, and then ultimately having something. It should have been out at the beginning of the year, but hey, guess what? COVID happened. So
I think
everybody
COVID kicked all of our asses.
it threw everybody for a loop. But yeah, I had this whole plan to hit World of Concrete. Nobody knew who I would have been. Everybody would have been up there, you know, the big names in the Hammr industries and shit like that. Like we would have got to meet, do some Q&A, and it would have been a real good shock factor. Like, who the fuck is this guy?
I love the underdog. I love
Yeah,
it.
totally. You know what I mean? Like the underdog. Like, don't count us out.
Yep.
We just got here.
We're only getting started.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's like, look at the videos, but and then I designed these claws. These claws are designed like this because I don't know if you ever rolled joists, right? And usually you break or bend a claw. So when you stick it in there, it sits in your joist on the aluminum joist, like on an Atlas or a Perry system, and it sticks inside, and you can hang on this thing. You know what I mean? And it gives it a groove where your normal claw ends up bending or breaking.
Yeah.
Then we have our nail puller underneath. I'll be showing videos of that later. We got
What are these things made out of?
These are 70-75 aluminum aerospace. This is chromoly steel for the head. So building Erner brand, back to what I was saying, I had to build a product that would build Erner brand, not just be something that could or might happen. So I had to put the Hammr because it's a symbol. It's a symbol of, holy shit, that carpenter did that. I can do that.
You came in
You know what I
swinging.
mean? Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, oh, so yeah, and like we said before, there's never been a problem that a Hammr can't fix.
God, you're giving us like slogans.
Hey, you guys can have them. I got mine copyrighted.
Just don't TM those yet. Let me borrow them.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to check out the Hammr, link is in the description of the podcast down below, ernerbrand.com, ERNERBRAND.com. You can check it out. I'll have it up on my Instagram as well. You guys can check it out there too. All kinds of rad uses for that thing.
Oh, it's a game changer, guys. Game changer.
I don't know how many of the features I could use personally with just rough framing, but to be honest with you,
I got one for you. Ready?
I want to swing one of the damn things.
Let's hear it.
Here, I got one for you. Ready? You want me to use the big tape or you want me to use the little tape? Or maybe you use the Erner brand tape.
There we go.
Product line.
So check it out. So when you're doing layout, right?
Yeah.
And you need a square line, right? You might have seen that video.
I saw that video. The top of that thing acts as a square.
Yeah. From here, when I designed it, from here to here, that's a big square line.
Yep.
So from here to here, like if you want to do a square, like a big square, I use it to just square lines and walls over, like when we're doing John walls. You usually got a big square and you get your sheetings will match, right? Or your seams will match. But for you guys, because, you know, I used to do a little residential framing, you know what I mean? And it makes a big difference, you know what I mean? But look, so from here to here, right here.
Describe this for the people who are on audio.
Hooking top of hammerhead. Holy shit, right down there to the bottom is
right here where that little C is.
16 on the dot.
Uh-huh. And then if you go from here to under here, it's 16.
No shit.
Right? So then if you're going to lay out, this from here to here is 1 3/8 inches. So you get your 16s and then you mark centers. But if you're doing layout and you're doing quick layout and you don't care what your Hammr looks like, and certain, you're going to get to a point where you don't even give a shit because it's a tool now. You take a spray can and you spray, and then you're done. So you'll have your 1.5 inches of where your studs go. You know what I mean? So like I said, when I designed it, we were talking about it, it was built around utility, and then I shaved everything off to make it look the way it looks. It's the apprentice that never talks back and always is willing to jump in.
Sounds like I need one of those now.
Dude, it's sick, dude. And, you know, for wood, I mean, wood, metal, stud framing and shit like that, it's badass. But I built this for the metal stud framers, like that little section right there. Because, you know, they use a smaller hammer, so they could cut the bottom off if they want it. And then it's a little framing hatchet for those guys.
Hell yeah.
Because I thought about them all. Like, I didn't want, oh, what, you didn't think about us? You didn't think about, you know, because I used to do lath too. Done lath, drywall, tape, plaster. Like when it comes to building, when I say I can build a house from the ground up, I can. You're probably wired too.
Take pride in that. That's badass.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's my old man taught me pretty good.
Before every episode, we wrap up the end with a fast five, as we call it. And
I wrote the first 3 questions here. Keep that in mind.
Yeah. Mac can get credit on these.
That's why they're actually decent questions.
Debatable. No, they're good. But we wrap up every episode ending with a fast five. So that's 5 questions to be answered in a sentence or less. So the first question is, your favorite tool belt is?
I use the Occidentals.
Nice. Second, tape measure of choice is, but you can't say Erner brand.
I use a Stanley Fat Max at work.
Crab or lobster?
Oh, I gotta have lobster.
Really?
Yeah, I love lobster. And besides that, it looks expensive when you have this big ass lobster tail and people
All
are like,
bougie. Hell yeah, it does.
Question number 4, your one message to the next generation would be?
Erner brand. Get up and get down.
I love it. And the last one is, what does BRED to build mean to you?
It's something in your DNA. You make more of them.
It couldn't have been said better, man. Ernie, I appreciate you joining the BRED to Build podcast, learning a little bit more about the union life, and this discussion around that, and then even giving us the opportunity to get you on here early. The Hammr coming available in the market here soon, so we're super, super pumped to not only support you in your journey. We've been talking long before this launch of the Hammr and everything, so it's pretty badass what you're doing. Making construction sexy again, having some swagger to it. The whole Erner brand thing and everything. It's really, really awesome, man.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. I really do, from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, thank you, brother. And before we let you off the hook, where can people find and connect with you?
You can find me on TikTok. You can find me on Instagram, and you can find me on Hammr.
Woo!
At Erner brand.
At Erner brand.
That's Erner brand, right? Yeah.
I think you're Ernie on Hammr, though.
Am I? I thought it was Erner, right? No,
or it could be Erner.
Might change. We changed
my name. You search Erner brand, you'll find him.
The day this podcast comes out, pre-orders open up for the Hammr. You guys can go to ernerbrand.com and grab yours before I grab mine. I'll race you to it.
And I grab mine too.
Yeah, let them know. I have the first 50 will be shipped immediately to whoever orders them, and then after that, you're gonna have to wait the 8-week period that it takes to build these things.
If you like this episode and you like what we're doing, drop a review. If you'd like to join us on the podcast or have some topics in mind that you'd like us to cover, feel free to shoot us an email at breadtobuildpodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to follow us on social media, you can find me on all platforms, Breck Goen. You can follow me on the Hammr app or follow these social channels, We Are Hammr or Builders of Insta on Instagram.
Wanted to thank you guys for listening. You can find me on pretty much every social platform at Matt Bangswood, along with hammr.com/Matt. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you guys in the next episode of the BRED to Build podcast.